here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. because we want to grow you as a defender.
The defender seeks the challenge of standing up for what's morally and ethically right, and is willing to step forward and put themselves in harm's way because they believe that sacrifice and love is the way to do things.
And what we mean by that is that you can grow as a good shooter, but what we're really here for is to help you grow personally as a defender. We know that personal growth and shooting growth go hand in hand, and we want to work to help you become better people in your lives, in your everyday lives, and that's going to translate to your shooting on the range. So that's what we're here for. Hello, everybody. It's October 5th, and this is Defenders Live. I am your host, Laura Thorson. Welcome to this episode of Defenders Live. I'm so glad that you're here. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. We love to hear from you. We can see those comments instantly. And I do have one little side note about those comments that I learned today. Some of you in the past have asked me why, whenever your comment gets put on the screen, it shows Facebook user instead of your name. Well, the reason is because if you're watching this from either the Defenders USA alumni private group or the Defenders Live with Laura Thorson private group, you're going to show up as Facebook user because you're watching in a private group. But if you're watching Defenders USA YouTube channel or Defenders USA Facebook page, which are both public, as well as Defenders Live Rumble channel, then we'll be able to see your name with your comment. We'll know who made those comments. So the mystery has been solved in case you were wondering why that is the case. So you might want to switch where you're watching from if you want us to know who is saying the comments. All right, so moving on, we have a special guest tonight. Kaery Dudenhofer from Kaery Concealed is with us, and we're going to have a really fun time tonight. I already know. Kaery and I were talking in the green room earlier, as well as Adam Winch. He's on tonight as well. He might be chiming in here and there, but Adam is going to be giving our tidbit for the week this week. And Adam is the founder and lead instructor of Defenders USA. If you don't know who he is, and if you don't know who I am, you can go to the Defenders USA website, defenders-usa.com, and you can look at the About page to learn about me as well as all the other instructors at Defenders USA. So before I bring Adam on for his little tidbit of the week, I first want to give a little shout out to the sponsor for this week's episode, which is Haven Defense Company. Be sure to check out Haven Defense Company. Britt Hickman and his family own this top-notch holster company in Colorado. All of his products are made in the USA, and their customer service is unbeatable. Don't take my word for it. Check it out on his website yourself. Britt makes sure each holster that leaves his shop is the very best holster he can deliver for you. He's my go-to guy for all things concealment. For 10% off any holster, go to havendefenseco.com and use promo code DEFENDERS at checkout. All right. Thank you, Brent Hickman and family, for being a sponsor of Defenders Live. We truly appreciate you. All right. Before we bring Kaery on, I'm going to bring Adam on here, and Adam's going to give us our tidbit of the week. Hello, Adam. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. Glad to be here. Hey, guys, I want to tell you a quick story from this last week. I was honored to be able to teach at the Active Self-Protection National Conference at the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp near Manhattan, Kansas. And I ran classes for 3 different days, one class each day on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on Saturday, I happened to be helping another instructor, Riley Bowman. And in that class, I noticed that there was a guy standing next to Robin Sandoval, who is the head of of A Girl and a Gun. Anyways, I think a lot of Robin, so I take notice of people she was with. And there was a guy that was standing there with her, and he looked like a police officer to me. That's my background. He just had that look, kind of that aloof, standing back, not trusting look, but paying attention and trying to figure out if this is something worth listening to. You could tell that they knew each other as they talked back and forth. And the one time I went up and stopped by and said hello to both of them, just glad that they were there. And then throughout that weekend, I saw that gentleman there. Later, I found his name is Tobin. Anyways, on Sunday morning, I was running an unconventional fighting handgun course, and he showed up as a student, which surprised me. I didn't realize he had signed up for it. And clearly a police officer of some type, and maybe it was some type of training he'd already done before. So I was glad to have him there. I put him right in the middle of the line because I wanted to watch him and just see what he could do. In the process, he did very, very, very well. I was able to fix a few different things that he did and add to it, and he was very open to what we did. Later, at the end of that training session, I had about 5 minutes with the students, and I sat down and kind of gave one of my staple talks that I give often in my courses. It was talking about the massive mental, emotional, spiritual, legal, financial aftermath of having used a gun, and then how to prepare for that, and then the things to think about, right? In the gun world, we oftentimes teach shooting, and that's the cool, sexy part, but rarely do we talk about, or not often do we talk about, the impact it has on the heart and the soul and your family life and everything else of having been forced into a defensive gun use. And I noticed as I was talking to that group, he was standing off to my left-hand side. He was watching me with just a deep intensity. Usually the intensity I see of somebody else who's been in some type of defensive gun use, who understands it, who's lived through it, or has been the victim of violence. And as we talked, I noticed his eyes were getting red, and he seemed very intent. Later, afterwards, Tobin came up to me he waited till literally everybody had left. And Tobin came up and he grabbed me in a big old hug, and he was just bawling. It caught me a little bit by surprise. I wasn't expecting it. Right? He was a big, buff, burly man. He makes me look like a stick figure, just strong as an ox. And he crushed me in a hug for a while. And then he started talking about some of the things he had seen as a police officer. In 20-something years, active as a cop, and been through a lot of hard things. And he told me about some of the challenges he's been facing in his own personal life because of, really, he thought, due to some of the emotional, mental, spiritual trauma that had come from a defensive gun use and some other type of things that he'd been involved in. We actually hugged. Some tears dropped on my shoulder. He caused me to tear up too. And we just kind of consoled each other and just kind of talked about it. Afterwards, he was just so kind and so thankful. And he said, this is not a topic we hear about often in law enforcement. It needs to be heard more often. And he said, thank you for that. And he said that's a great impact. Anyways, a few more words and we split apart. I just found out a couple of days ago that Tobin went to bed at night and then he didn't wake up. And found out he had passed on. I had no idea the depth of this man beyond the interaction I had with him, but I found out in the time frame that he was a valued and highly respected help to a girl and a gun, that he'd been an instructor with them, and just an incredible help to them. And I thought of some of the challenges, the personal things he shared with me, and my heart broke for him, and it kind of re-cemented in my mind once again that we need to take the time to really connect with those we know and love, right? Check in on each other and cherish and value our husbands, our wives, our children, our coworkers, and those that truly do look up to us, right? We are the gun crowd, and we do have a certain amount of people who do look to us for guidance and leadership. And I think that living that positive life and being of support and also at the same time letting other people know how much we love them is such an important thing to have, because here it is, an incredibly wonderful man. And though I spent scant hours with the man, I realized in those moments what a good and honest and decent and just a good man. I think we are, as an organization and really as a world, are less off because he's no longer here. But I think the challenge is today to remember your families, remember those you love, and let them know they're valued and wanted and deeply appreciated, because we never know when our final day is to come. And in honor of Tobin, I wanted to say that tonight. And let me finish with this. This is a favorite verse of mine, or a life verse of mine, and it comes from the last 2 verses of Jude. And I'm going to read them just because I want to make sure I get it right. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling, and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To the only wise God, our Savior, be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and ever. Amen. Anyways, in honor of Toby, God bless.
Thank you, Adam. All right. Wow. That's quite a tidbit for the week, guys. Very important stuff. Hard to move on from, but I need to get my guest here, Kaery, on the show, and maybe Kaery has some comments as well for this, but I'm going to bring Kaery on here. And hi, Kaery. Welcome to the show. We're so glad you're on.
Hi, Miss Laura. Thanks for having me.
So we want to learn everything we can from Kaery tonight. She is she serves a lot of different roles in a lot of different places, wears a lot of different hats, and she's always somebody that I've noticed, and I haven't known Kaery for very long, but she's someone that I've noticed is a very upbeat, very positive person, an inspiring person. And I appreciate you taking the time tonight, Kaery, to speak with us. So for those that don't know you, could you start with giving us some background about you? And we'll talk a little bit about your story first. Then I kind of want to get into your teaching and some questions about that I have specifically for you. And then I want to talk about the Active Self-Protection Instructor certification towards the end. So take it away, Kaery.
Awesome. Thank you. That sounds awesome. I would just like to just echo what Mr. Adam said. It's a good reminder for me. Mr. Tobin, I AI'd in the class that he was in at the national conference this year. So just a sobering reminder that each day is precious, right? Love our family while we can, even when they drive us crazy, especially for those of us that have kids, right? They do such but yeah, anyway, that's a tough one. So all right, on to, so you asked a little bit about me and my background, is that right?
Yeah, let's just for those people that don't know who you are, yeah, let's give some background information.
Okay, so my name is Kaery Dudenhofer, and when I met my husband for the very first time, I didn't believe that that was his last name, because Dudenhofer, I mean, that's a joke, right? So I asked him to see his driver's license because I thought he was joking, but he wasn't, and then I felt awful. So this is the guy who I carded. We've been married for 28 years, and he's an amazing man. He puts up with me every day. So I'm the wife of 1 for 2 years, and I'm the mom of 7. And there's our family. Our oldest just got married, so I guess I technically could say 8. But we live in Eastern Washington, where I grew up. We live on some land that my great-grandparents homesteaded back in the late 1800s. And it's just a pleasure to be able to live. I always tell people we live next door to my parents, and it sounds weird, but it really isn't. I don't have any siblings. My parents had me and then decided, oh my gosh, we can't do this again. Not that I blame them. Anyways, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about my background. I guess I was in the Coast Guard right after I got out of high school. I didn't want to inflict more pain and damage on any teachers, so I thought going to college would not be a good idea after graduating from high school. So went in the Coast Guard for a couple years, had a great time. I had no idea that boot camp was supposed to not be fun. When you're 17, everything's fun, right? So did that for a few years, was on a boat that did patrols in the Bering Sea, and then worked at an air station where we had H-60 helicopters. That's where I met my husband, got married, came back here, went to Whitworth University, and taught for a couple years, junior high and high school. And then when our first child was born, I got to stay home with her.
So teaching is in your background. It's been in your background for a while. Yeah.
It is in my background, yeah.
And I think some people are just teachers at heart, you know? I think it's just people are lifelong teachers. Some people just have it, I think. So I hear you do. I have not been taught by you, but I have talked to others who have, and then they have very high regard for you. So then specifically firearms then. So I don't know that we have a similar journey, but from what I've heard about your journey to the firearms world, which I want to hear about, it sounds like we weren't directly in an encounter, but something was a catalyst in our life that brought us to firearms training. Is that what happened with you as well?
Yeah, that's correct. Do you want me to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, could you please?
Okay, yeah, I can make it. Yeah, so let's see, our first child was born, and I remember holding her at home alone. My first night at home alone with her. My husband worked nights at the time at a local emergency room, and I remember hearing noises and stuff I hadn't heard before, and the neighborhood sounded louder than normal, and everything seemed more dangerous than normal, in those first few weeks at home with the baby. But that really started to pique my awareness that, it was up to me to protect her if my husband wasn't home. And he wasn't home a lot of the time, and especially not at night. So back then, I thought bad things happened mostly at night. As we know, that is actually not necessarily the case. But anyway, then I did begin looking for training. I used to practice with my daughter when she was little. I carried little Smarties, the little candy Smarties around in my pocket everywhere I went. And I would practice running, not out in public, but in the house. I practiced running and hiding and keeping her quiet as a baby. And then when kid number 2 came along, same thing. I'd practice picking up the car seat and picking up the oldest and running. And when we were expecting our third child, I could no longer pick up the 2 oldest and run to safety. And I realized, well, my plan for running probably wasn't such a great plan. I mean, if I can, right, obviously, but if I can't. So that's when I really began looking in earnest for training. And at that time in our area, there wasn't anything. There was no local range. Any of the training that I found within driving distance was all by military and law enforcement, active or retired. And at that time, I had a really hard time understanding how somebody that has a team that they travel with and somebody that's running toward the sound of gunfire, someone that's open carrying rather than concealed carrying, I had a hard time understanding how that might help me as a private citizen. And then in 2005, an event happened locally that I just could not wait any longer. It's really what pushed me to realize that, I had to do something. And a family, and you can look it up, but a family in Wolf Lodge, Idaho, was the mother and father and 13-year-old boy were bludgeoned to death, and an aggressor abducted the 9-year-old and 7-year-old and held them in the Lolo National Forest for about 6 weeks, where he horrifically abused them and killed one of them. And anyway, just a horrific circumstance. And for me to realize that the place that family probably felt the safest is also the place where I felt the safest, and yet I might not be. And so I had to do something. So it took a bit to try to find training, but my dad was really a catalyst for that. My dad retired law enforcement, and he said, "So you're going to do something about this kid or not?" And I got to do something. So he gave me a list of trainers that he suggested I train with. And so I started out, and most of them were national level trainers because that's what he knew. And I'm thankful. And so the first training I went to, I remember the instructor talking about some things. Well, back at Gunsight, we taught this, and here we taught that. And some people say you should do reloads here. Some people should do them there. And I just couldn't get enough. Then I wanted to know, all right, who says what and why? Where's the why behind this? Yeah, I couldn't help myself after that. So I became a training junkie, like hardcore.
Yeah. And when did you become an instructor?
Oh, that probably 2012, 2013, right in there.
Okay. So let's move on and talk a little bit more about your family. You said you have a really large family. One of the things that I'm curious about, maybe this is just a mom-to-mom question, or maybe not, but I just wonder, as a massively busy mom, a firearms trainer, wearing so many hats and so many different things, I'm sure there's many things you're a part of that I'm not even aware of. Could you speak to our audience about your approach to the importance of balance in everyday life? I think that for me, that's something that I've really tried hard to focus on, and that's a daily struggle for me. And I know that you homeschool as well. So could you speak to our audience about that?
I can sure try. Sorry, I'm laughing only because I'm probably the worst person in the world to speak about balance of any type. I'm the type, that survives on a cheesecake for an entire weekend of cheesecake. But so I'm certainly
that was going to be my next question.
But I do try. I think there's, at least in my life, there's indicators when things are out of balance. And if I can just be mindful and listen to and pay attention to those indicators, man, life's a lot easier for myself and the people that I love. So I wouldn't say that I intentionally try to balance anything. It feels like spinning plates, and you try to keep as many spinning as possible. The one thing I would say is I have tried to reduce the number of plates that are spinning at any given time. So I've tried to just kind of create as much margin as possible. And when you have a lot of kids, you have to, right? So, our three youngest boys are just 10 months apart. And so they all wear the same size shoes, pants, shirts. So I buy three of everything. And that just makes and they love it. They don't mind, thank goodness. But so I tried to make things as easy as possible, as few plates in the air as possible. And I have a ton of support too. I mean, my parents being next door, my husband is incredibly supportive. Our children are phenomenally supportive. Like our three oldest kids are fireman instructors because they wanted to help me with the classes I teach. They loved the people that they saw coming to classes and wanted to help them and help them they remember what it was like when I was frustrated and struggling and so desperate for information, not knowing where to turn. So
Yeah,
it's probably not
that
real helpful as
support
far
is
as balance
so
goes.
key. Support is so key and so needed and makes a huge difference. And I don't call it spinning plates in the air. I talk about fireballs. They feel like fireballs to me. But it is true that you should limit the number in the air at any given time. That is a thing. That is a real thing. And not only that, but so that you're able to give your whole focus to those fewer things. That's a big deal. And that, that again can go back to shooting because we can only think about so many things at one time. Not very many. I think a rule of 3, right? Maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, where your focus is really important. And where you choose to keep that focus is important as well. So I wanted to just speak to that for a minute. So you already let the cat out of the bag about the cheesecake. I've got a great picture here I want to show. This is Kaery and her cheesecake. So what's the deal with this? Can you give us some backstory on the cheesecake, Kaery?
Sure. It's nothing glamorous or good. And yeah. So let's see. I could probably lay the blame somewhere if I tried really hard, but truly it's just all me. Anyway, a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago, we don't have a cheesecake factory where we live. And so the nearest one's about 6 hours away. So my oldest son had to do some eye doctor appointments, kind of high level in the Seattle area. And so trying to make it fun for him, when we took him to the appointment, we would ask him, hey, is there anything you'd like to do? And he happened to see a sign for a place called Cheesecake Factory. And I think when he was probably 10 or 12, he thought that meant he would make a cheesecake or something. So anyway, so we went to the Cheesecake Factory and I ordered one type. He ordered the raspberry lemon, and he's such a great kid. He was willing to share half of it with me. I shared half of mine with him. But I'm telling you, the Cheesecake Factory raspberry lemon cheesecake is amazing. So the only time I get it is if I happen to train in a city that has a Cheesecake Factory. And yes, that is something that I take into consideration where I train. Is there a Cheesecake Factory in the city that I'm going to be? I'm not saying it makes the decisions about who I train with or where I train, but it might be a factor. But anyway, so I plan my route for sure. Actually, my kids even help me. They'll print me Google Maps or send me links. Hey, there's a Cheesecake Factory nearby. I have students that are amazing, and they'll give me gift certificates. Those cheesecakes are expensive, actually. They're worth it, but they're expensive. But anyway, so they'll give me gift certificates. So yeah. But I can't take it home with me, so I have to eat it while I have it, right? So it's just not great to train in Phoenix. Is the only problem in the summertime. It's 116, and trying to keep a cheesecake fresh it's not easy. It takes commitment.
So you just got to eat it. Yeah, you just got to eat it. Oh boy, wow. Okay. And then one last kind of silly question I want to ask you before we move into the teaching aspect of the series of questions. Why do you call everybody Miss or Mr. or Miss? You always put that title in front of everyone's name, and I don't understand why. Could you speak to that?
I don't understand why either. Actually, okay, so it started. So when I was a kid, actually even to this day, my parents' friends are Mr. and Mrs. Baker, Mr. and Mrs. Wax. I didn't dare call them Rich and Leanne or Joe and Stan or whatever. So, not that I didn't dare, but it was just a respectful, polite thing to do. So when we started having kids, I thought, you do what you're raised to do, I guess. It seemed like a good idea to me, right? So I asked them, okay, so hey, would it work to have our kids say, hey, Mrs. Smith, blah, blah, blah. But then what would happen is Mr. Smith would say, well, I'm not Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith is my dad. And I'd think, well, I'm not going to have my kid call you John. So we got to come up with something. So that kind of turned into
Oh,
Mr. Jason or Mr. Jesse or
I
that
get
sort of
it.
thing. And really it was to model that for my, like when they're really little, like 2, 3, 4, you're like, can you give this to Mrs.
Yeah,
Jones? Can you, whatever. Anyway, but when you
right.
parent for 20 plus years and we still have like about at least 10 to go, that's 30 plus years of parenting. So it's just a hard habit to break. But it's interesting though. I do, it's just kind of it just flowed into, and I guess probably because my kids started teaching with me, because I was, why do I call my students that?
Oh,
Well, my kids started teaching with me when they were, teens. And so I didn't
mm-hmm.
want to refer to the student as, hey, take Jane over there and do whatever, or do you want to work with Betty?
Right,
So
right.
I guess that's how it
Well,
started. So
I
probably
just
not a great
I just
answer,
had
but
to ask. I had the opportunity, and I can't be the only one wondering that, so I thought I would just ask. Here's a good question I saw in the chat. In your opinion, what is the most efficient way to keep the balance with where did it go? With family life, with multiple kids and staying up on your skills?
that's a great question. And I see free time, et cetera. That's a great question. So I'm not going to say this is the right answer. This is just kind of what we've stumbled into. Um, I'd like to say I'm intentional about things, but I'm not quite sure I am actually a lot of times. It seems like we just fall into some of these things. But as far as the balance with family life and or with multiple kids and then staying up with my skills, we've tried to include our kids in the ones that want to be included in training. So thankfully, my
Mhm.
kids are pretty, they want, so far, the four oldest so far have really wanted to take classes and train with me. I really enjoy taking one of them with me when I go train, especially if we travel. Um, my 2 older kids will tell you some great stories about when, I signed my oldest up for a Tom Givens instructor class, but I didn't pay attention that it was an instructor class. So at like 15 or 16, she
Oh.
shows up with a leg brace on. And, we both thought we were at the wrong class at first because we were some high speed, low drag folks. And here we are. But anyway, so we included her. My oldest son, he did a red dot pistol class with me. I didn't ask the best of questions. So we showed up. I thought it was like an intro to red dot class. So we showed up to Mr. Jedi's red dot pistol class with borrowed guns and dots, and we'd drawn maybe 2 or 3 times from our holster with those dots. But man, we ramped up real quick. So I guess including the kids, involving them in things, so we do things together. So far, they've been okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a kid here along the way that
Mhm.
isn't, and then we'll have to kind of cross that bridge when we get there. Um, Free time, there isn't a ton of free time. I guess my free time, I still like to read about gun stuff, or not necessarily gun stuff, but stuff that helps me explain things better to people. Like, talk to a behavioral optometrist or a neurologist about different things. So I really
Mhm.
enjoy doing that kind of thing.
So getting into teaching just a little bit, I've heard that you research and measure all kinds of data as an instructor, like grip strength measurements of like all of your students. Is this true? And then you have like records that you keep. Is that true? And could you talk
I
to us
do.
about that?
Where are you finding this stuff out?
I have a little birdie.
So I guess. So yes, I do, which I'm sure is really weird. And it all it all stems from just wanting to understand my students better. I know that I have limited time with my students, and so I want to help them as much as possible with the limited time I have with them. And so the more I can learn about how they are, how the body functions and that kind of thing, the better. And then I really think it's important that that's one of the things I just love and adore about active self-protection, is that it's evidence based. It's not, when I first started
Mhm.
training, I'd ask the question, so why do we, look left real quick, look right real quick, and do the hokey pokey, turn ourselves around, before we holster our gun? what is the purpose of that? How long do you have to look one way or the other before you can actually, and what are you looking for? And I just so appreciate the scientific or evidence focus, not scientific, evidence focus
Yeah.
of what we do and why we do it. So as far as grip strength goes, I would, see things in my students, and my family's really helpful about that because, I never stopped talking. So apparently my first word was why. If you ask my mom, it probably was. But so I ask why a lot, or I wonder why that is. And so I'll ask, I wonder why this happens, or I wonder why that happens, or I wonder why some people are so adamant about carrying a, 22 long rifle or a 380 as opposed to a 9mm. Why is that? And so that just leads me to investigate your stuff. And then I also want to know if the training that,
Curiosity.
yes. And I want to know if the training that we're doing is making a difference. So, because if it isn't, then I have a big problem, and it's not my students' fault, it's my fault. So, yeah. So it's weird. I know it's really weird. I just had a gal, I'll say it real quick, but I had a gal at the national conference this year. Her husband, at the ASPIC National Conference, her husband was really hoping that she would get into carrying 9mm instead of a 380, or shooting a 9mm instead of a 380. And he didn't understand why she wouldn't. To him, there's very little difference between a 9mm and a 380, and he's not wrong. But this woman was a smart woman, and there had to be a reason. And he'd talked to me about this for a while beforehand. Anyway, she was in one of my classes, and so I measured her grip strength. We wrote it down, and as I was looking at it after the class, I was like, "Holy cow! That's why this poor pumpkin prefers a 380, because her grip strength in her, it was like one hand it was 37 pounds of grip strength, and the other it was 42 pounds of grip strength. So, that little difference between the 380 and 9mm felt like a big difference to her. And it felt like she had more control over it. So anyway, so that's why I like it. Just explains the things and often gives us insights. Sometimes it creates more questions than answers. But anyway, curiosity. That's what I should have just led with. When you said, why do you do that? I just should have said, curious.
Yes, curiosity is so important, and that's how I get myself into trouble all the time, because I'm just curious. I hope I'm not lagging behind. I feel like my internet is maybe lagging, but anyway, I'm going to keep going here, and Adam's going to tell me if something's wrong.
You're looking good on my end if
Okay,
that helps.
okay, well, so are you. So I know that I know you have a passion for developing female instructors, but there's one thing I kind of want to talk to you about as far as teaching men versus women. What major differences do you see between teaching men versus women as far as what they need when you're teaching them, or do you notice a difference?
Well, that's a great question. I would just like to qualify that question with, this is just based on my experience, not necessarily what it is for everyone. Most of my
Yeah.
students come from our local gun club. And so there's a certain type of individual that joins the gun club, and that's often who finds out about the classes that I offer. So the biggest differences I find are the ones that most other instructors find, to be honest. Through the Active Self-Protection Instructor Development Program, those are some of the things we talk about and share. And a few of them are, not across the board, but for the most part, women are often incredibly teachable and want to learn, willing to try new things. I think guys are also that way if we approach them and if we approach training in the most desirable way with them. And I don't even think it's hard to do that, to be quite honest. So I think that's a big difference. Hands down, this is absolute hands down in my classes. Women always, I try never to use that word, but just never. Yeah, I can't think of a single class that I've had, a couples class where the husband has outshot the wife or the boyfriend has outshot the father or the daughter. Especially when I'm not talking speed, I'm talking accuracy. But so that's kind of fun when they can, outshoot, outperform. They listen real well. They don't often have any, they have very little baggage that they come to it with, or preconceived notions. So they're often open, willing to try things. And I find that a lot of those newer to handguns don't have a lot of, well, I read this, or I've done this forever, or this is the way I was trained, or what have you. So it makes it easier, kind of like a cut to the chase kind of thing.
Yeah, those newer shooters are kinda clean slates that you can build those good foundational skills into them without having to try to undo or retrain bad habits that they've learned in the past, and it's just like it's just a yeah, clean slate, I guess, is the best way to describe that maybe, and I think that's fun, and that's a huge responsibility as well to me, I think, so.
Yes, yes.
So, I have a little birdie, and that birdie told me that you're really good at teaching perfectionists. So, since I fall into that category, could you help me with no, I'm joking. No, but there's lots of people out there I know that's watching right now, guys, gals, doesn't matter, that have a tendency to be that type A perfectionist, right? And, so what can you say to those types of people out there to help them in their shooting or just in everyday life?
Wow, that's tough. I don't know if I have a ton to offer. If I go back to the enjoying teaching people that struggle with perfectionism, so I like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist, but probably light on the recovering part. I mean, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be that way anymore. Um, I just
Mhm.
took Mr. Bryan's deliberate coaching class in Spokane here. We hosted him. Phenomenal class. If you haven't taken that, I strongly encourage, I know you have, but I strongly encourage everyone else to take it. Hands down, the best instructor level course I've ever had. Um, I would even say
Mhm.
that would go with my college classes as well. So anyway, Mr. Bryan's
I
a
think that
phenomenal
might be
human.
the first class where I realized that being a perfectionist did not serve me anymore. I think that was the
Yes,
first time I
yes.
realized that. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and yes, and Mr. Bryan's really helped me realize that too. I was, this is going to sound pathetic, but it's true. But I was really proud of myself and genuinely excited and celebrating and saying, "Yay me!" When I allowed myself to grossly miss the target, and I mean grossly. You have a
Mhm.
3-inch circle here, and I'm
Mhm.
3 inches below the 3-inch circle, and that's at like 7 yards. Um, that was a big deal for me to allow myself to do that. So what I try to do with students that really struggle with perfectionism is just help them define success. And we try to do it together because oftentimes success, we'll define, if we're left to our own devices, we'll define it as the middle of 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 the X. And if we don't hit
Mhm.
that, then we feel like we're a failure. So sometimes that works, but sometimes we have to come to an agreement. My student and I will have to come to an agreement that I get to define success as their person that is helping them and cares about them deeply and cares about their success. I get to define success for that drill or that iteration or whatever. Um, and so we try to clearly define what success is, I guess, and then
Mhm.
ask questions. How
Yeah.
is our desire to do whatever actually is that going to help us? Is it going to benefit us? Is that what we really need? Those sorts of things.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm still a work
Mhm.
in progress myself on that big bad one.
Yeah, it's not fun to be a super type A perfectionist personality, and I'm learning as I've gotten older. People think I'm way younger than I am, but I'm not 20. Um,
That's a good thing though,
but I've
right?
learned yeah, yeah, I guess. Um, I've learned that, yeah, being that way almost used to kinda be a badge of honor, but now it's not a good feeling, it's not a fun thing anymore, and I'm really working on letting that go. I mean, the fact that I'm literally hosting the live stream now is not something even 5 years ago could ever happen, ever. So, that's the other thing I think we need to remind people of is to think about how far they've come from where they started. Even in just a year's time, if they've been working really hard, we get so caught up in what we need to be doing next that if we don't pay attention to where we've come from and how much progress we've made along the way and have those celebrations along the way, then we're never going to be satisfied and we're never going to be happy. And I know it's good to have drive, but it's also really good to, in retrospect, look back and be like, wow, I can't believe I've come that far. That's really important too, I think. So, anyway, maybe
Oh
that's
yeah, celebrate
redefining
those moments
success,
along the
right?
way. Yeah,
What you were talking about.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've heard also that you have a passion to develop, especially female instructors. So, us your give us your take on how you feel the industry is with female instructors. Are you happy with the direction that it's going? Do you feel like more women need to be involved on the instructor side, or are you feeling that that's really gaining momentum? And do you see anything lacking that we need to maybe fill some gaps in? Things of that nature. Could you speak to that?
Well, I can do my best. It's my opinion that the industry doesn't need more female instructors. The industry needs more evidence based instructors that have the heart of a teacher
Mm-hmm.
and that love and care
Yeah.
about people more than they care about themselves, I guess. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be women. Um, I do think that we do a disservice to women when we encourage them to train only with women instructors. One of the things I adore about the Girl in a Gun National Conference is, Miss Robin does a phenomenal job of introducing her ladies to a smattering of instructors. Whether they have a vagina or I shall say that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whatever body parts they have, let's put it that way. Doesn't matter what body parts they have. It matters. Sorry, so sorry. Um, she she just cares that they're a phenomenal instructor and that they're willing to help others and help them improve and grow. So I think that's the key more than anything. Am I excited with the direction it's going?
Yeah.
I'm so excited about the direction it's going. I couldn't be more excited, and then that's because of the people that I've been able to meet through the ASP instructor development program. So we're cohort 5 is just finishing up. They're phenomenal and amazing people, and seeing the future of the industry. Probably, like, I kid you not, I have been more encouraged this past 6 months than I probably have in the past 7 years. It's just
Wow.
phenomenal, the people that are coming up and their willingness to question and ask why and figure out the best way
Mm-hmm.
for their students, and to see each of their students as an actual individual student, not the class as a whole, but look at what each individual student needs, which isn't easy to do. You have to really know your stuff to be able to modify on the fly,
Right.
and accommodate curriculum. So
Right.
there you go. Hey, I
Yeah,
like
and I
that. It's in
think
the
that's
dictionary. It should
partly
be
an
fair play.
intuitive
I agree.
process. Yeah, and Liz says it's just anatomy. Why are we laughing? Yeah.
There we go.
Oh boy. Um, no, I agree with you, and I'm excited, and I can't, I don't have my finger on the pulse as probably as much as you do, especially with the instructor certification program. But I'm totally encouraged by the people I meet. At least the circle that I'm in, people, the network of people that I've been a part of this year, are just wonderful humans. Just have great hearts and are all willing to really dig in and learn, and for the betterment of other people, not for themselves. And I think that's the key. That's really the key to it. And I see that, in you and in a lot of people that are in this group. So, and probably a lot of the people watching, that's probably the reason why they're watching. There's just so much information to be offered to each other that we can share. And like Adam always says, iron sharpens iron, right? And I think that this is a great thing. So let's move on to the active self-protection instructor certification program. Give us the 50,000-foot level for those that don't even know what you're talking about, and start there, and then we can drill down.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Mind blowing awesomeness. I don't, well, I mean, I do know what it is. I just couldn't articulate it very well. But I was going to say, I don't know what it is about ASP um, that they attract the most amazing people to their instructor development program, and also to our national conference as well. Just the level of human is mind blowing. So the awesomeness of it is what's, it's just people show up these quality people apply, number one, and then you have great shooters who want to become better teachers. They are excited and happy that the focus of the course and the program is on, we know you can shoot, can you teach? And can you teach more than one type of learner? And how do we teach people that come to us with, physical exceptionalities or emotional exceptionalities? What's the best way to reach them? And how can we do those things? And we solve problems together. And it's just awesome to see what happens. I really should spend some time figuring out how to articulate it, because I can't. But it's absolutely mind blowing, the quality of people that apply for the instructor development program. Not everybody that applies gets in, but man alive, the best of the best are what's accepted. And maybe eventually it'll, we only have 12 slots per cohort right now. The next cohort starts in February, and if everyone that's applied is accepted, and I'm talking some quality people, you among them, it looks to be incredibly promising. So just amazing people. I can't even articulate what it is that makes the program so amazing, other than we dive into stuff together. I would say that's one of the biggest things other thing too is that it's a team approach. Like in my book, it's the team approach that's so phenomenal. So, you have phenomenal instructors in their own right, like Mr. Chris Bean. You have Miss Steph, who's the CEO of the company, and she's also a phenomenal trainer. Mr. Neil, Mr. John, just people that genuinely love and care about other people and who are master shooters and also master teachers, but they're not worried about themselves. They're worried about helping other people and helping other people be the best that they possibly can. It's just mind blowing. I can't wait till you get to be part of it. And then maybe you can help me articulate better what makes it so amazing.
Well, I'm going to help you right now, because everybody, I know most of you, maybe all of you know what ASP stands for, but maybe not. Active Self-Protection Instructor Certification. So ASPIC is the acronym. Yet again, there's another acronym. This industry is so full of acronyms. It's just mind-blowing. So ASPIC is the acronym for Active Self-Protection Instructor Certification. And I put a link down below in the description, no matter what channel you're watching on, and you'll see the link to learn more about that program there, as well as Kaery's business, Kaery Concealed. I put that link in the description below as well. So then if you want to learn more about it, you can. But I would say 50,000 foot level, I don't know a ton about it, but what I understand is that it's not a 3-day class that you just go and take for a weekend and then you're an instructor certified in blah, blah, whatever. It's like a 6-month long thing that you do remotely from home, but there's like a weekend out of that portion
3 days
where you physically go to a location. Okay. And learn one-on-one, but all the while you're doing all of your homework and all of your study, probably over Zoom with the class, I'm assuming. And it's like a 6-month thing. It's an extensive program that teaches you how to teach. It has nothing to do with shooting, although you must be a qualified shooter, a very good shooter, pretty good shooter, in order to even get considered. And you have to apply, and you have to have letters of recommendation from people who know you. So they want to know your character, your skill level. You have to jump through some hoops. It's not just a thing you just sign up for and willy-nilly go. It's quite an ordeal.
This is a program. Maybe Mr. Adam can jump in too if he's available and interject a little bit about. I think it'd be cool if he did. This program, John Correa, that started Active Self-Protection, just an amazing human being, and it's his vision for the program and what I think what the industry has desperately needed for a long time. And it's a well-crafted program that just meets so many needs on so many levels. I think one of the other really cool things about it is how the interaction among the cohort, so the family that is created in the cohort, we have past cohorts that still meet
Mhm.
monthly all on their own. They do, and they like we have one of the cohorts.
Wow.
They pick a book to read every month, and I mean they've made a commitment to each other, and I mean hardcore commitments to continuing to grow and become the best instructors possible.
And what did you say? Did you say something about there's something in the works in the future with another type
Oh,
of program? Or what were
yeah.
you talking about?
I can't go
Oh,
into
wait, I think Adam, do you
details.
wanna come in?
Okay, yeah.
Did you want in, Adam?
Yeah, I do. So Kaery and I went through the first instructor cohort with ASPIC, right? ASPIC, the very first one. So Kaery, my big question for you is, right, because I'm begging to be allowed to come back as a return student. My big question for you is, from when you and I went through it to what it is now, can you tell people what this instructor program, what the difference is from the first time to now? Now, something to add to this. Before it was about 6 months long, but I think now it's down about 4.5 months. And from what I understand, it's completely changed and it's revamped quite a bit. And most instructor programs are a quick weekend, right? It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's out. Now, I think there's a couple instructor programs that do a really good job, like Brian Hill's Deliberate Coaching does a phenomenal job. I'm a fan of some of the Range Master stuff too. But now, how does ASPIC, because it's 4.5 months long, how is it different from the first time to what it is now? And by the way, for those listening, you should consider this as one of your instructor programs.
Great question, Mr. Rob. Thank you. That helps me get on track too. Great question. So I think the biggest difference is that, as things, grow and evolve and we're able to better see and evaluate the needs of the students coming to us, we can adapt and grow and streamline things and make more efficient, more effective. One of the biggest changes is that we ask the students at the very beginning, hey, what are some areas where you would like to grow? And we take a list of those. And Chris Bean is phenomenal at this. And then he and Miss Steph, Mr. Neil, Mr. John sit down and all right, so here's somebody's question or a need they'd like filled. Who can we go out and get in the industry or maybe outside the industry to fill that and answer that question? So we started doing that with a little bit with cohort 4. We did it more with cohort 5, and cohort 6 will be even heavier with that. So we have guest speakers that come in and talk to us about things like Riley Bowman talked about the role of vision in shooting, and not vision as in just looking, but like holy cow, mind-blowing vision
Perception.
stuff. Sarah Houtman from Philster came and talked to us about business development. The puppy. Anyway, all kinds of amazing stuff that we have other people come in from outside the industry to talk about. I mean, the instructor cadre alone is Mr. John and Miss Steph have built this phenomenal company. They are part of the resources. It's totally a team teaching effort. The senior leadership, Miss Steph, Mr. John, Mr. Neil, are heavily involved, like constantly, regularly, routinely involved, not just in the in-person, but on the weekly meets. Each student has what we call a live session at the end. And so they take a piece of curriculum and they get to teach that to us as a panel. And then we get to visit with them a little bit about what it is about, ask them some questions. They get to ask us, hey, I want to teach this here. Is it better if I teach this here or teach that there? What are your thoughts on that? And it's amazing. It's amazing.
So
one of the biggest
your
things,
role or whatever, or title or whatever, with the instructor certification?
My title?
Yeah.
I think Chris Bean and I are program directors.
Oh, okay.
So
sorry to interrupt you, Adam.
One of the things I found was so invaluable and important with it was that we got to see students from all over the country who are instructors in their own right. And we got to bring in everything that we felt we knew and present it within this program, and then critique each other and then help each other make it better. And so by the process, not only learning from at the time, John, Neil, and some others. But we also learned from each other, and we collaborated together to make our own programs better. So I think that 6-month long, or now 4.5 month long program of self-discovery was just as important as the teaching itself. And that grew us just as much as the program. So I think that's one of the things that's really important on this. What do you think to that?
Oh man, amen to that. It's you feel like you're an island. At least I felt like I was an island for a long time. I remember even going to some instructor classes where they would want you to share, okay, so you teach, your job is to teach sight picture. And so then you would teach, and maybe you called it something different or described it differently. And then, rather than hey, that's interesting, or have you thought about, it would be, well, why do you do that? That doesn't make any sense. That's not the way we've done it. And that'd be kind of disheartening. So I got to a place where, and I do things that are probably really, really weird. And it took me a long time to get to a point where I could say, yeah, what I do is weird, but it gets results. And if it gets results and we can measure those results, then who am I to argue with the results that happen? So what's awesome, I think, about the ASP instructor development is that, like Mr. Adams said, it's coming together. You're not an island anymore. You have this group of people from all over the country. You're not sharing markets or anything like that. I mean, even if there was somebody right my next door across the street who happened to be in the same market I'm in, their students want them. My students want me, and they're going to switch back and forth. And that's the way it should be. Hopefully we can definitely share students, encourage them to go on and learn from others. I don't want my students to I feel like my goal with my brand new shooters is to prepare them to go train with other people. That's what I want them to do. That's why I host other instructors, so that they'll go train with them. But yeah, and the books that we read are just so thought-provoking. The weekly meets, we have an hour-and-a-half meet every single week. And people in the cohort, they just don't miss that meet. People do whatever they can to attend that because it's so phenomenal. Just the ideas being discussed and the things being thrown around, and there's no ego. I guess if there is, I sure the heck don't notice it. And we do hear people say that often. They were expecting ego, and they're just pleasantly surprised when they get there, and there isn't any, because there just isn't. We're just all there to work through it together and help it together.
So Alex wants to know, for someone who wants to join the program, what do or should they bring to the table in the way of experience before applying?
Man, great question, Mr. Alex. Mr. Alex is in my sniper pistol class on Sunday at the National Conference, and the man killed it, absolutely killed it. So what do they bring to the table? That's a great question. So we have had a number of students in the past who describe the program. They say, you're doing a disservice by describing this as being about teaching rather than being about shooting, because a number of our students, a lot, like the overwhelming majority, come and they're shocked at what they learn about shooting through the program. So although that is something we cover, it isn't necessarily the focus of it. It's kind of an outcropping of what else we're doing. But what should they come to the program with? I would say, as far as teachable skills, we ask that they have taught 25 to 100 students. More is better, right? And by students, we don't necessarily mean people that are just in students in the firearm world. We've had people apply and do the program that had spent most of their time teaching in the lessal arenas or alternate tool arena. Folks that did more TAC med type stuff. So it's all coming with the heart of the teacher. And, a lot of our students are the same, that we overlap. So how do we best reach those and meet them? So that's a great question that Mr. Alex asks. And more of the requirements are listed on the website. So it's aspinstructors.com. So aspinstructor.com.
Can you put that in the comments, Adam, please? Okay, cool. All right. And then we were just briefly touching on maybe something in the future, or are you not allowed to speak to that yet?
Yes. And also, as far as, you do have to be able to shoot in order to get into the program. It's important that that people, this isn't a beginner shooting type course, but even advanced shooters or folks that feel like they're advanced shooters, have a lot to I have a lot to learn. We all have a lot to learn, right? Okay, so I can't go into detail, but all I can say is for the folks that really, really, really enjoyed their cohort, there might be another awesome experience similarly related in the growth area.
That's really big.
It's got to be big. I didn't have permission to share. So anyway, but let's just say, so one thing I can say about Mr. John and Miss Steph is there's no still water, or the still waters run deep, right? So it might look still on top, but there's always something brewing and growing under the surface. So good stuff.
Okay. Well, that's something to look forward to. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to take you off, Adam. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Okay. All right. So the cohort 6 is closing on October 15th, right? That's what you told me?
Yes. So the application window closes on October 15th for cohort 6, and cohort 6 begins February 1st. And then the in-person for that is the beginning of March.
Okay. And then, when can people, if they don't make cohort 6, when can they start applying for cohort 7?
So cohort 7, that's a great question. So we'll have, there is information on the website, but we'll have more detailed information as soon as the window for cohort 6 closes. But there will be a cohort 7 also in 2023. It'll just start later, so not February, but 5 months or so after that. In person will still be in 2023 for cohort 7.
Okay. All right. Well, how did we get a minute past the hour mark? What happened? How did an hour just go by?
I don't know. You're a great interviewer. That's how it happened.
Oh, no, you were great. I knew this would be a fun one. Is there anything else you want to touch on that our audience needs to know about you or about instructor certification, or anything you want to wrap up with before we leave?
That's a great question. I would just say if you have any questions about the instructor certification program with ASP, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us. So there's a link on the ActiveSelfProtection.com, AspInstructors.com, Kaery at ActiveSelfProtection.com. Hit us up, and we're happy to answer any questions you have. I encourage people don't self-select out of the program if you're interested in doing it. Reach out. Let's talk about it a little bit. Don't just automatically assume that you're not eligible for it because you haven't been, teaching firearms for 20 years. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Well, Kaery, thank you so much for coming on. You were so much fun to have on. Maybe someday you can come back. I don't know. But I really enjoyed having you on, and thank you so much for your time tonight. I know the comments, wouldn't say were blowing up, but they were very active tonight, so that's always a good sign. And a lot of Kaery people that are fans of Kaery out there, that's for sure. So
that's sweet.
Big time fans out there shouting out, Miss Kaery is awesome. Here's one right there. I'm like, it's crazy.
That's so nice.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on. I'm going to take you off the screen now and just remind everybody that next week, let's see here. I've got my notes. Oh gosh, next week, let me look. What calendar date would that be? The 12th, October 12th, we're going to have Ryan Thiel on from Iron American. And Iron American is a really cool success story that you guys are going to want to tune in for. Not only are you going to learn about some really cool products that they offer that I think would be helpful to you, and I know that Adam is a huge fan of, but Ryan himself, I talked to him on the phone last week. He's a really neat guy, and he has a really cool story. Just in his business alone, that story alone is really inspirational, and he'll have a lot of really cool things to tell you about and keep you inspired, I think, especially if you are running your own business or you're trying to get something going in your life. He's a really neat guy to talk to, and he'll be bringing a lot to the table next week. So we're looking forward to that. And I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. And thank you so much for engaging in the comments. We really enjoy seeing those. And so until next time, take care.